stick it out till the end. Now that it's raining more than ever, know that we still have each other. You can stand under my umbrella, you can stand under my umbrella.
Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, I'll be cutting and sewing this skirt with basque waistline and box crop top. If you're interested, keep on watching and let's get started. So we're going to start with the skirt, and I'll be cutting on this pattern paper before I transfer to my fabric. So I'm going to first of all go ahead and take my zipper allowance, because I'll be cutting the front and the back together. For the zipper allowance, I'll be using 1.5 inches. So on one end of the pattern paper, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches all the way down, and I'll connect into a straight line. I'll label it my zip, and then I'm going to fold the other end of this pattern paper to cover the line that I have. So the pattern with the zipper allowance is the back, and the other one that I folded on it is the front. So I'll be adding 1 inch band to this skirt. So the skirt length without the ruffles is 15 inches. Take note. So my main skirt length is 26 inches, okay, but for now, for the basque waistline, I'll be using 15 inches before I attach the ruffles. So I'm going to go ahead and take the distance from my waist to my hip, which is 8 inches. Take note that I'm taking out the 1 inches band before I'm placing this measurement. I'm going to go ahead and rule a straight line across the 8 inches mark, and I'll label it my hip line. After doing that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and place my waist circumference divided by 4 on the waistline. I'll add 1 inch for that, and I'll add 1.5 inches for my stitching allowance. We don't really need the hip measurement for this skirt, but I'm going to just place my hip circumference divided by 4 on the hip line. I'm not going to add any stitching allowance because we don't need it, but I just needed this hip line because I want to go up from the hip line. So after placing my hip circumference divided by 4, I'm going to connect from the waistline, the dots that I have on the waistline, to meet the dots on the hip line like this. So right now I'm going to determine how deep I want the basque waistline to be. So I'm going to now go up by 4 inches or 3 inches from the hip line. I'll do 4 inches, so you can see go up by 4.5 inches or 5 inches. So 8, 7, 6, 5, that is 4 inches. I went up by 4 inches and I indicated the 4 inches mark. Take note that I'm still taking out the 1 inches for the band. After doing that, I'm going to go inward from the zipper allowance by half an inch, just like you see me doing, and then I'm going to use my ruler to slant from that half an inch mark to meet the mark that I have above the hip line like this. So it depends on the shape you want. You can make it curved, you can slant it, whatever you want to do, but this is the basque waistline. After doing that, guys, next thing I'm going to do is to take in my dart. So I'll be using half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 inches. On that dot, I'll go down by 3 inches, which is going to be the length of my dart, and I'll connect into a straight line. After doing that, I'm going to take half an inch on both sides of the straight line because I left 1 inch for my dart. So I'll be taking half an inch on both sides of the straight line. After doing that, I'll connect back to meet the 3 inches. After taking in my darts, I'll go ahead and cut. So on the side, I went out by about half an inch and I connected back to the waistline. After cutting, I have the front, the back, the sides. I'll just go ahead and label so I don't get confused. So I'm going to place this on my fabric and I'm going to cut out. So guys, I've gone ahead to cut on my fabric, and this is what I have. So I have the front and the back. For the front, the center front should be on fold. Do not forget that the center front is on fold, and I went ahead to add half an inch all the way around except the side because I already have my stitching allowance on the side, so I did not add any allowance on the side. But on the waistline, on the back waistline, I added half an inch. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and notch my darts on the fabric just like you see me doing, and I'm going to open it up for you guys to see. So this is is what I have. Like I said before, it's on fold. So the next thing I'm going to do is to now take in my dart. I've already notched it and the length of my dart is 3 inches, so I'll go ahead and take in my dart. For the back, I'll also go ahead and notch the dart, and I'll notch the zipper allowance area, just so I'm sewing my zip on the zipper allowance. And I went ahead to also add half an inch on the waistline and on the back effects. Okay, so I'll go ahead and remove my pins. So guys, this is what I have after removing my pattern paper. The center back is pleated because that is where we are going to attach the zip. So I'll go ahead and also take in my darts for the back. So I've gone ahead to take in the darts. These are the two back piece, and I did the same thing for the front piece. I went ahead to take in my darts. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place them on each other, right sides facing each other, the front and the back. And then I'm going to pin the sides. After pinning, I'm going to use the stitching allowance that I left. So I left 1.5 inches as my stitching allowance on the waistline. I'm going to use the 1.5 inches to join both sides of the skirt. And to know the amount of ruffles to cut out, I'm going to go ahead and measure one side of this skirt. So I'll measure from this end down to the base. So just look at the way I'm placing my tape. I'll measure from here down to the end, and what I have is 15 inches. So on this side we have 2 layers of fabric, on the other side we have another 2, so meaning we have 4. So 15 times 4 is going to give me like 60 inches, because times 2 is 30, times 3 is 45, times 4 is 60. Okay, so I need 60 inches of fabric to go around, but 60 inches is not going to be full, so I'm going to double it. 60 times 60 will give me 120. You can triple it. It depends on what you want and how full you want your skirt to be. Okay, so to know the length of the ruffles that I'll be using, I'm going to place my tape like this, taking out the 1-inch band. So I have 16 because I have half an inch on this waistline to join the band and half an inch on the base to join my ruffles. So like I said before, the length of my skirt is 26 inches, but I'll be adding 1 inch to the ruffles. So I've already taken out 15 inches from my skirt length already. So I'll be counting what I need to complete it to make it 26 inches. So from 16 inches, I'll count 1, 2, 3 down to the measurement. So I'll be needing 12 inches of ruffles. 12 inches because I'll be using 1 inch to hem the base of the ruffle. I hope you guys are not confused. After doing that, I'm going to fold my skirt like this, front facing front and the back facing the back. And for the back, I'll go ahead and close the zipper allowance. After closing the zipper allowance for the back, this is what I have. On the base, I left a little bit of opening because I want to join the ruffles to it. And I've also gone ahead to cut out my fabric for the ruffles. Like I said before, I doubled mine. I went ahead to run gather stitch all the way around, just like you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and place this on the skirt, right sides facing right sides. I'm going to place it, I'll pin all the way around. So the opening that I left on the base, that is where I'm going to start pinning from. After pinning, I'll go ahead and sew all the way around, and I'll close the back. So guys, after sewing the ruffles in place, this is what it looks like. Okay, so this is how it looks like on the inside also. So what you're just going to do is to overlock it all the way around. I went ahead to also close the back that I left opened earlier. I went ahead to close it, and I also went ahead to hem the base of the ruffles using the 1-inch allowance that I left. The next thing I'm going to do is to open my zipper allowance, which I've already done. I went ahead to open it up, and I'm going to be attaching my band to it. I'll go ahead and fold the band into 2. So the wideness of your band should be about 1.5 inches. So you use half an inch to join the skirt and the band together. I'm still going to reduce the band to 1.5 inches, and then I'll use half an inch to join. After doing that, I'll be left with just 1 inch, which is what we took out for the band. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and join all the way around. After doing that, guys, this is what I have. Okay, I went ahead to pin the zipper allowance. So guys, next thing I'll do is to open the zipper allowance, and I'm going to fix my zip in place. And yeah, that is all for the skirt. So let's go ahead and draft out the top. So I'll be drafting on my pattern first before I transfer to the fabric. The first thing I'll do is to take half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. I will indicate that with a dot. After doing that, I'm going to go down by half of my round armhole measurement, which is 8 inches. My round armhole measurement is 16 inches. 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches. So I'll go down by 8 inches. I'll indicate the 8 inches with a dot. I'll go ahead and mark the 8 inches on the end of this pattern paper, just like you see me doing. After doing that, I'll go ahead and rule a straight line across the dots. That is where my armhole is going to be sitting. The next thing I'll do is to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. So on the mark that I have, which is half of my armhole, half of my shoulder measurement, I'm going to go down on that point by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. From there, I'll slant into the neckline area. After doing that, I'm going to now connect from the shoulder slope to meet the 8 inches mark. I'll connect in a straight line. After doing that, guys, next thing I'll do is to go ahead and start taking my point. So the distance from my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. I'm going to place my tape like this, and I'll mark 10 inches. I'll mark it all the way around to get a straight line. After doing that, I'll go ahead and roll a straight line across. So guys, next now do is to determine the length of my top. So this is a crop top. I'll stop at 15 inches. So that is also going to serve as the waistline. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to place my tape on this straight line that I have right here, and I'm going to divide what I have there into 2 equal halves. So what I have is 7 inches. Half of 7 inches is 3.5 inches. I'll mark the 3.5 inches. I'll indicate that with a dot. On that dot, I'll go inward by half an inch. After doing that, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4 on this chest line. I will indicate the mark, and then I'm going to add 1.5 inches to that measurement as my stitching allowance. After doing that, I'm going to use my ruler to connect from the shoulder slope to meet the half an inch, and from that point to meet the chest line. That's the mark that I have on the chest line. So guys, next thing I'll do is to take my neck measurement. So this is a free top. For the width, I'll be taking 4 inches, and for the depth for the back, I'll be using 1.5 inches for the back, and for the front, I'll be using 3.5 inches because I don't want it to choke my client. So I'll be using 3.5 inches. After doing that, I'm going to connect. So I'm using this same pattern for both the front and the back. That is why I'm placing the front and the back neckline on this pattern. So guys, at this point you get to determine how free you want your top to be. If you want it fitted on the base of your fabric or pattern paper, go ahead and place your waist circumference divided by 4, and then add your dart allowance, which is 1 inch, and add your stitching allowance if you want your top to be fitted. Okay, so after doing that, you can just go ahead and slant inward like this. That way you get a fitted waistline. but I'm going to cut through the bust line because I'm not sure if I want it fitted or not for now. What I'll do now is to fold my fabric into two and I'll place my pattern paper on it. I'll be using this to cut out the back first. So I went ahead to add 1 inch for my zipper allowance at the center back, as you can see, and I'm going to go ahead and add half an inch on the base, which I'll be using to hem the top, and on the shoulder area I'll also go ahead and add half an inch all the way around. As you can see, the only difference between the front and the back is the zipper allowance and the neckline. For the back neckline, I already trimmed 1 inch from it and I left half an inch for now. The reason is because after turning the neckline with my bias, it's still going to reduce the neckline. So instead of taking 1.5 inches for the depth of the back, just take 1 inch. 1 inch is enough. The next thing I did was to adjust the zipper area. So I took half an inch away from the 1 inch that I have on the waistline and I slanted upward just to avoid zip bulge. After doing that, I'll go ahead and cut everything exactly as it is and I'll trim the zipper allowance. After doing that, I'll go ahead and notch my zipper allowance just so I know where to fix my zipper when I'm sewing. So after doing that, guys, this is what I have for the back, and I'm going to go up by 1 inch on this center back, okay, and then I'm going to slant from there to the waistline. So I'm doing this so that the top sits perfectly on the waist area, especially at the back. Then I'm going to go ahead and trim this part out. After trimming, I went ahead to notch the zipper allowance, okay, for the waistline area, and this is what I have. So I'm going to go ahead and place my pattern paper on my fabric folded into two, and I'm going to cut the front. So guys, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into two and I placed my pattern paper for the front. So what I'm going to do is to mark half an inch on the waistline. This is going to be my hemming allowance, and on the shoulder area, just like we did for the front also, I'll be adding half an inch all the way. I'll also go ahead and mark the armhole area just like you see me doing. I'm using my chalk to mark out the armhole area because I don't want to cut this front armhole out yet because I still want to use this pattern paper. So I'll trim the base. After doing that, I'll go ahead and trim the shoulder area. But before I do that, I'll notch the 4 inches neck width so I know where my neck width is. And then I'm going to trim the shoulder area. I'll also trim the armhole. So if you're using a pattern paper, just go ahead and cut through this front armhole. That is all you have to do. So I already notched my neck width. So what I'll do is to take the neck depth for the front. Earlier we took 3.5 inches, so I'm going to mark the 3.5 inches and I'm going to connect like this. After connecting, I'll go ahead and also come inward on the armhole area just like we did on the pattern paper before. I'll come in on the armhole area by half an inch. So the front and the back armhole is different. For the front armhole, you have to come in by half an inch, and then you are going to connect like this just like it is on your pattern paper. So I'm going to go ahead and trim the neckline and the armhole area. After cutting, this is what I have for the front. So what I'm going to do is to use my bias to pipe the neckline. I'll also repeat the same thing for the back. I'm going to pipe the neckline for the back and I'll join the zipper allowance. I'll use my gather stitch to sew the zipper allowance in place. So the next thing we'll do is to cut out our sleeves. So I'm going to fold my pattern paper into two. On the folded edge of the pattern paper, I'm going to come inward like this by 3 inches. And on the opened edge, I'm going to go down by 4 to 5 inches. So you can do 4 inches, 4.5 or 6 inches. It depends on the measurement of your round armhole. So I'll go down by 5 inches for this tutorial. I'll indicate the 5 inches mark. The next thing I'm going to do is to now use my free hand to connect from these 3 inches to meet the 5 inches mark in a slanted form. So we don't need that curve that we normally have on the sleeves because this is like a shirt pattern, so we don't need it to be too curved. So I'm just doing it in a slanted form. After curving, I'll go ahead and blend from the center to meet it up like this, just so we don't have any sharp edge. The next thing I'll do is to place my tape like this all the way around to know what I have, if it's going to be enough for the armhole area. So half of my round armhole is 8 inches. Okay, I already have 8 inches. I'm going to go ahead and add 1.5 inches to it, okay, for the stitching allowance. So this is more than enough. The next thing is to determine how wide you want your sleeves to be. So this is a free sleeves, and you can also decide to shape it after cutting. So I'm going to just mark 7 inches or 7.5 inches, or you can just connect straight down, okay, from the armhole. It depends on what you want. So I'll connect like this. If you want it fitted on the base, go ahead and mark your exact round arm measurement and then add stitching allowance. That way it will be fitted. But even if you cut it like this, you can still shape it when you're sewing. After cutting, this is what I have. I'm going to place it on my fabric and I'll cut out 2 pieces. So I've gone ahead to pipe my neckline and I've sewn my zipper allowance. I just joined it in place for now using my gather stitch. So what I'm going to do is to place the front and the back right sides facing right sides. So I'm not going to add that for this tutorial because this top is kind of free and this fabric is a little bit stretchy. So I'm going to join the shoulders together. I've also gone ahead to use my pattern paper to cut out the sleeves, and I added half an inch on the base. And before I forget, the length of my sleeves is 10.5 inches plus my half an inch stitching allowance, it's 11 inches. So I'm going to open it up like this. Go ahead and notch the center of your sleeves. After doing that, I'm going to place the center of the sleeves to the shoulder area of my shirt, and then I'm going to sew. After sewing the shoulders in place, I'm going to place the sleeves and I'll sew all the way around, and then I'll also go ahead and hem the base of the sleeves. After doing that, I'll go ahead and now sew on the 2 sides of the shirt. So I'll use my stitching allowance to sew both sides. And yeah guys, I've gone ahead to do that and this is what I have. I've joined my sleeves in place. I've also hemmed the base of the sleeves and I've sewn the sides of the top using my stitching allowance. The next thing I'll do is to open up the zipper allowance. After doing that, I'm going to use my half an inch allowance that I left on the base of the top to hem the top all the way around. After hemming the base all the way around, I'll go ahead and fix my zipper to the zipper allowance. And yeah guys, that is all for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to like this video. If you are confused anywhere, leave your questions in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.